In Canvas, when you go to Home and then go to Modules, the little icon, and click on it for 1.8, it didn't take you anywhere. But I only had one student actually try that and tell me. And I showed her how to get to the rest of that. So that tells me that no one else actually watched the videos last night or read the textbook. Is that a fair assumption? Okay. So if we aren't going to start doing that, then you can start doing web work at home. And I will talk the whole period on the lesson, if you'd prefer. I mean, in class, I see a lot of you asking for help and getting help from me in doing the problems. But that only works if you come prepared to class. If you've never seen the material before you get here, then I need to take the whole period and teach it to you. Okay, we can switch it back if that's what everybody wants, but that means web work will be done at home, not be done in class. So you need to get home and find someone to help you at home. You kind of see why I do it the way I do. I want to see you guys practice in class so I can help you figure out what you need. But if you're not coming prepared to class with what I put a ton of effort in to give you, there's no point. We'll just go back to the way you learn math in 7th and 8th grade. I talk the whole period. You go home and do the homework, and it's due the next day. And if you don't understand something, I hope you come in on your own, because we're not going to use class time to go through it. Okay? So I need to see a little more effort from you. I mean, you're not having, you may not quite finish web work in class, but it's better than having the whole assignment to do at home rather than just 2 problems. Would you agree? Okay, but that only works if you actually do what I ask you to do. And yes, textbook check, and the textbook check is worth 5%. Not a huge number. It can save some people's grade if you're on the borderline, but it's not going to hurt you that much if you just come and get 2 out of 5 every time by guessing. It's your choice. But the main purpose of the textbook check is so that you're motivated to actually do what I've assigned you to do the night before. And if you're not doing that, then you're not doing any homework. I'll just have you do the web work at home, and I'll just talk to you the whole period about math, and then you can practice on your own.
I don't like that.
Okay, I don't either, but you've got to learn it somehow. And if you're not watching the material and reading the textbook, me just taking 10 minutes and just going through the highlights is not enough for you to understand it. Okay, so if you're not doing some work on your own, which is what I'm trying to train you to do, be accountable for yourself, for your own learning. Okay? If you're not doing that, then we'll go back to the old style, and I will assign web work at home, and every problem that you're having in class, you're going to have to figure out on your own, because I won't be there to help you at home. Okay, that's what I don't like about the traditional math classrooms, is you get homework, and you go home, and nobody can help you. And then you get frustrated, and then you get behind because you haven't done anything, because you didn't understand it, and then it just snowballs, and before you know it, you're really behind. So what I'm trying to do is give you the information you need to come in. You don't have to be an expert on the material when you get here, but when I start going through stuff and you've never seen it before, that's not enough time with you to teach you the material. You need to have done that pre-work before you get here. Otherwise, the system doesn't work. Okay? So the fact that you found that this morning, it told me, you were the only student that told me you couldn't get past that first page. I fixed it now. I fixed it first thing this morning. There are other ways. If you can't get it through let's go to modules. So what happened was, you go through modules, you should have gone down to 1.8, and when you hit that, this button didn't come up. So there was no way to get to the textbook. Okay? If that happens in the future, go to modules on the left, scroll down to the section you need, maybe 1.8, and if you clicked on that one, the next popped up. It was my fault. I had a link to the wrong page on the main screen in Canvas, but everything was right if you went through it the long way with modules. Okay? It's fixed. But the fact only one person told me that she's the only one who tried to actually do the pre-work. Because no one else probably knew how to get the shortcut, I guess, to it, or the long way. Okay? So I'm going to get off my soapbox, but hopefully you understand. If I start continuing to see nobody coming prepared, we are going to switch it back, and you'll be doing web work at home. You won't have class time to do it, because I'm going to talk to you the whole period. I'll have to present all the material that's in here to you myself. Otherwise, how are you going to learn it if you're not going to do it yourself? Okay? Okay, 2 things in this section, since no one has watched it, but maybe a couple, is absolute value, equations, and inequalities. First off, a quick review of what absolute value means. Can anybody tell me?
Absolute value is positive.
Okay, it's always why is it positive? What's the definition of an absolute value?
Distance
Good. Okay, how far away from 0 is 3?
3.
How far away from 0 is negative 3? 3. So absolute value is really distance. And distance isn't negative. This is why anytime you see an absolute value, which is represented by these 2 lines, you can just drop the negative. It's always positive, like Tristan said. It's kind of the short way. But the reason is it's measuring the distance from any number to 0. Okay? So when you solve, if I wanted to say, if I said, this, what value of x would this be true for? 3? What other value? Negative 3. So an absolute value equation always has 2 answers, because there's 2 possibilities when I take the absolute value of it to get the answer. Okay? So if I'm dealing with an absolute value equation, I always have to set up 2 different equations. So I'm going to first drop this. That's my first equation, the positive. The other way is I've got to make this whole thing negative. You could do that. I'm going to show you a shortcut, though. Okay? If I just divide both sides by negative 1, this becomes this. Okay, so the key to solving an absolute value equation is you're going to write 2 equations. Don't forget, 2 equations. The first equation is always just what's in the absolute value written without the sign. The absolute value sign. The second step is write what's inside the absolute value sign, set it equal to the opposite of whatever is on the other side. Pretty easy, but you just have to remember you have to do 2 different equations because 2 numbers will make that statement true. Okay? The inequality absolute values is just a little trickier, but it's not that hard. Let's do that one. Okay, there's still going to be 2 inequalities I have to set up. First one, just like we did. Okay, second one, remember what happened here. To get that 4 negative, I divided by a negative. What happens when you divide by a negative with an inequality? You've got to flip the sign. Those are the 2 inequalities I'm going to work with. Okay, so for the equations, if it's an equation, I drop the absolute value. I write it exactly the way it's written. That's the first one. I drop the absolute value, and I set it equal to the opposite of whatever was on the equal sign on the other side. Okay? For an inequality, exact same. The only difference is when I set it equal to the opposite, I've got to flip that sign. And then at that point, I'm just going to solve both of these inequalities. this point, I have to figure out how would I write this solution in interval notation. Well, first, is it an and or an or?
It's an and or. It's an and.
What's the easiest way to figure it out?
The,
Graph it, right? Put it on a number line. It's less than 1, greater than -7. Ah, it's an and. Ands are always between the two numbers. Ors, they go opposite direction. Okay, in interval notation, ands are the easiest to write. I don't have to worry about a U connecting the two. It's just one interval, and the interval is -7, parenthesis because it's open, and I'm done. Okay, writing it in compound inequality notation, that's how I would write it. Hopefully, as you start learning the interval notation a little more, you're going to see it's really a lot easier once you understand it to really interpret what that means. This means that the x is going to be every value between -7 and 1, not including either number. Okay? All right, so let's get to the textbook check. Quizzes. There will always be two answers for an absolute value equation. Can you think of an example there wouldn't be? Are there two answers here? No. Because 0 is not either sign, positive or negative. Other than that, though, always. To solve the absolute value equation below, you would set up two equations. The first equation is exactly as the problem is written without the absolute value sign. The second equation would be what?
-4.
X plus 3 equals -4. In the absolute value inequality below, you would set two inequalities up. The first inequality is exactly as written without the absolute value sign. The second inequality would be x minus 4 is less than -1. Right? If ax plus b is less than c, the solution is an and inequality. So I just did one. Where is it? ax plus b is less than c. Did that end up being an and? Yeah. If it were greater than, it's an or. I would say to you, don't memorize that. You'll figure it out in the end. You know what I mean? Like we did. Once we get to two answers and we graph it, we know it's an and. So you don't have to memorize the fact that if it's less than it's an and if it's greater than it's an or. But that is true. In the second video, Sal Khan makes an error that I point out. What's the error? Do you remember? Did you watch the second video? I think it was that he forgot to flip the sign. Who got that one right?
It was not that one.
It's not that one?
I think it
I'd have to go watch it again. Huh?
was the
58. I could look at the answers here. I could look at the video, but it doesn't matter. I was just checking whether you watched the video. So I'll have to look at that one before fourth period. I can't remember. Okay, any questions on 1.6 or 1.7? Did 1.6 close last night?
Yes.
It did?
You can't input any more answers.
What's that?
It's open, but you can't change the answers.
Okay.
Yeah, it says this homework can you open it? Because I didn't finish it.
Yes, I can.
I was working on it and I.
I'll open 1.6. 1.7 is due tonight. Are there any questions on 1.7, or has anyone started?
I got a question.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and open 1.6 back up and finish that if you can.